enough about land use for now.
Sure.
The council considered the sugar tax and decided not to, the soda sugar tax.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, I feel like it's all self-evident. So can you explain for a couple of minutes what the idea was? And
yeah, so the idea is, so Berkeley recently passed a sugary beverage tax, sugar sweetened beverage tax, and it applies at the distributor level. So it doesn't actually occur at the retail transaction level. So for instance, if you buy Coca-Cola, for instance, most people buy it from a distributor and they'll either get a large delivery of actual pre-made, kind of in the can or in the bottle type of thing, or some restaurants do the big jugs of canisters of syrup. The tax is paid at the distributor level, so the local distributor would pay a tax of 1 penny per reconstituted ounce of the sugar sweetened beverage. So the retailer wouldn't have to do a whole lot of paperwork. I mean, one of the things that came up was like, oh, we can't support this. It's going to just be this administrative burden for the retailer. That's not true. It's done at the distributor's level. The idea was, Berkeley's approach was to tax it and use that tax to provide some information, provide some funds for some of the school garden programs and a variety of things like that, and then also directly or indirectly try to reduce consumption. So, so it had some appeal. It had some appeal to me personally because I think it's nice when taxes are avoidable, right? If they're a little bit more on the discretionary side. One of the things that people have talked to me about is the fact that they feel like Davis is fairly unaffordable. They're struggling to make ends meet, and the prices keep going up. And is Davis only going to be for the wealthy and successful? And so the idea of an additional tax, that kind of hits everybody. Whereas if it's on a discretionary item, there's a little bit more flexibility. So if you don't want to pay an extra, 12 cents of tax on your soda, well, you could do a diet soda, or you could do water, or you could go to Woodland if you're so inclined. If that's what sends you to Costco, then that's what sends you to Costco.
A discretionary decision.
And while not ideal, it's probably because what we were considering at the time was utility users tax. And so the thing about, we're pretty good on time. That's what's nice about your show is we can actually talk about things in depth. It's important to place things in context. When we were talking about the sugar sweetened beverage tax, it was in context of we were evaluating perhaps a parcel tax. We were looking at a utility users tax, and we were looking at sugar sweetened beverage tax. Utility users tax is fairly common in California. There are a couple hundred municipalities that tax utilities. So that could be your electric bill, that could be your water bill, that could be your cable bill, that could be your phone bill. And on average, it's about 5%. And that would have generated a fair amount of money. The thing about it is pretty much everybody uses electricity, and everybody uses water, and everybody has trash collection, and so it's hard to escape that tax. So
this is the term you used at the beginning, which was avoidable.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I see where you are.
So if we add a 5% levy on terms of your electrical usage, or cable subscription. Yeah, I mean, does it create a hardship? Probably not, but again, it kind of adds that overall expense of Davis. And if you're really kind of watching your pennies, every little bit adds up. So this kind of had some appeal. It also had some appeal because there are very well documented health consequences of ingesting large amounts of sugar. And people, again, context is important. People are sort of like, well, this is ridiculous. This is the nanny state. You're going to tax sugar. How come you don't tax sugar in my pie? And I actually had a slice of pie the other day, and it was delicious. And
Do I hear Bob Dunning? Go ahead.
oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I heard it from a variety of people.
Yeah.
Not just Bob Dunning, or reading it in Bob Dunning. The thing about it is, actually, the research has shown that this is probably the main source of sugar in people's diets for a very large proportion of people. And so it really is, we need to be realistic. This is like one of the major sources of sugar in people's diet. Are we trying to stop it completely? No. But, let's be honest, eating a Fig Newton versus drinking a Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is, or cola, let's not pick on Coke.
It may be the same amount of sugar in both of them.
Well, that's a lot of Fig Newtons.
That is a lot of Fig Newtons.
The thing about a sugar-sweetened beverage, in most cases, it's really just sugar and water.
So I got this out of a cartoon, but it was Beekman. It was the science guy.
Sure.
So if you throw a can of diet soda into a swimming pool, it'll float. If you throw a can of regular Coke into the swimming pool, it'll sink. The only difference is the sugar. That's how much sugar is in a can of Coke.
Okay. I'll have to try that sometime.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the specific gravity is so different that the reality is it goes, it's a lot heavier.
Yeah. So anyway, just kind of getting back to the health impacts of a sugar-sweetened beverage are actually much worse than sort of eating, me eating a piece of pie. Even though there might be a similar amount of sugar, with the pie there are a variety of other constituents that tend to slow the absorption of the sugar, and there's also some nutritive value. So me eating an apple pie, there's some apples in there, there's some flour and some, various other things. Whereas sugar-sweetened beverages just tend to be essentially just sugar and water. So having said that, the goal here was not to become a nanny state and just sort of, tell people not to drink soda. But, I drink soda every now and then. To me, it's a treat, and I can pay an extra 12 cents. Or I guess now it's 16.9 cents or 20 cents, depending on the size of the soda. And, that's okay. The goal here is not to be a nanny state. But I think it's a very symbolic thing. If we would have had a soda tax, it, I think, would have sent a signal that, we recognize some of the negative health consequences. And coupled with this was the plan to use that money for children's health and recreation programs. So one of the things about the city budget is we have a parcel tax for parks. The parks parcel tax covers about a quarter of the cost of operating our parks. And so there is a need for additional funding for our parks and rec programs. And so the idea was that there would be sort of this nice benefit of the soda pop helping fund some children's nutrition programs and also recreation programs, and also cover some of the park expenses. Anyway, that's kind of a lot on the soda tax, but there was not support on the council for that. And I think ultimately 10 years from now we'll look back and wonder why it took us so long to put a tax on sugar-sweetened beverages.
Well, the calendar now is that the next chance we'll get will be the next time there's the city council race, which won't be for 2 years.
Right.
So maybe in the middle of your term, you can bring it back up.
Possibly, or at the state level. It's a little bit like the plastic bag ban.
Exactly.
The city did it a smidge ahead of the state, but,
We're having the conversation. We did it with smoking.